Good day, world. Today I got an onboard ARB air compressor. This is not the dual, this is just a single. This is something that stays in my razor toolbox for off-roading. And I got a leak on my toolbox, and I got some water in there, and some water got in the air compressor, and now it doesn't want to work. So I'm taking it all apart, trying to figure that out. Just a bunch of 10mm bolts. This comes off. Don't really need to show you that stuff. Nothing important in there. Piston is in there. This is the motor. There is that's the air intake. You can spin the motor and watch the piston go up and down. Blah 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 blah. This is where the brushes ride. Got a little bearing on here. Put some WD on that. Put some WD in there. Cleaned it up. It was covered in mud and rust. The reason it quit working is because I got all that water in there and it just sat and got rusty and got nasty. But the main issue that I'm having, I wasn't really prepared for this video. But anyway, I'll show you. So, this brush goes like this. This brush doesn't do that. The spring it appears to be somewhat broken, but I might be able to use it. It's going to be difficult because it connects on this little thing way down in here, and I'm not going to be able to get in there and show you. Probably there we go. It slides over where it's red back in there. It slides just over that, so it's actually capable of apparently just coming off. And you can see that spring in there. It's hard to get it light in there. And you can see how it connects to the back there. Sorry, got my girl gloves on here. But so that's it. I'm gonna clean this thing up and see if I can get that spring in there to fix this brush. Like I said, it's just a bunch of 10mm bolts. And to get this part out of the body, I had to get a pretty big flathead screwdriver and a hammer and just kind of get in there at the lip and kind of tap it apart. Fun stuff. There you go. That's the inside of the ARB air compressor. Alright, so this is pretty janky setup. My selfie stick broke. I'm going to get me a new deal for my camera phone. So this is the spring out of the ARB. Spring out of the ARB compressor. It is broken. What I'm going to attempt to do is use a spring out of an ink pen. Now, the problem that I'm going to run into, that I'm going to address, and I got an idea for that, is the spring is going to be connected to the back of the brush, which is going to have electricity on it. And based on this color, I haven't done a continuity test, but maybe I should. That might actually save me a little bit of time. But as of now, I believe that this brush that's messed up is actually connected to the hot wire based on the fact that it's red right there. So the issue that I'm going to run into is I'm going to end up conducting positive 12 volts right into the body of this air compressor. And that's no good. So what I'm planning on doing is I got an old ink pen, and I'm going to try and get this thing out. Oh, that came right out. And then I'm going to try and cut this down a little bit. Okay. Now I'm going to cut this down a little bit. Like so. It's my first go around on this. I hope I don't screw it up. And then that way, I got a thing to insulate it from grounding out. As you can see, it works. Pretty cool. I'm back after a little bit of work, and I've actually cut that spring down, cut the spring down some and cut the other piece down a little bit, and I can stick that in there. And when I put it all back together, I'm actually going to try and reverse the polarity and see if this thing will actually still compress and make air. If it will, then I'll just change the color of the leads and I'll just hook it up backwards from this point on, and then if this accidentally grounds out, who cares? Shouldn't hurt anything. But just in case, I think I might actually end up putting a piece of cardboard right here, and then I'll try to keep that from getting wet in the future. But what I've got here is a ratchet that's pretty close to the same size as the actual bearing on the back side of that motor, so you can actually see it works pretty dang nice. Alright, here's the end result. It's literally a piece of that Coca-Cola box right over there. Now the hard part's getting this thing back together. That's going to be really difficult. Alright, so I tried to set the camera up so I can show you guys how I got this back together, because I had to do it twice. The second time, this piston wasn't lined up vertical. It was off to the side, and the bolts were missing where the screw goes. And the screw goes pretty close to where this is at on the back side of that. But I'll tell you how I guys did it. Screwed that up. I'll tell you guys how I did it. So the end with the brushes on it, I stuck it on there at an angle and just got in there with this little flathead screwdriver and just kind of pushed this brush this way and then popped it on there and then pushed the other one that way and popped it on there. Now, that's just getting it on the bearing. Once it's on the bearing, you actually have to work it over the brushes, which are a little bit bigger than the actual bearing itself. So what I did there, because I really feel like the way they probably do this is they take all this crap off of this end of the motor, and then they probably put the motor into the brushes by hand like this, and then they probably stick that all as in one piece into the body here, and then attach all this stuff. And that would probably be a lot easier, except for I didn't want to mess with all this. So what I did was I got it like that, and then I was able to push it in a little bit past that cardboard. And then this end, what I did was I just kind of grabbed the piston rod with my thumb, and I would rotate this whole thing while just kind of gently pushing, and as it was rotating back and forth and pushing it, the brushes were able to pop over the edge of where they ride on the back of that motor. So here in a few minutes I'll be putting some power to it, see if it works. Hooked up to the battery and my razor, and like I said, I'm going to reverse the polarity on this. So worst case scenario, if that deal I made in there does end up somehow touching the metal chassis, that shouldn't hopefully be any bad results of that. And so here we go. Oh, and by the way, you might want to turn your volume down. I'm going to give you about 5 seconds to do that. Here we go. Yeah, buddy. MacGyver at his finest. Alright guys, I want to talk to you about this air compressor. I had it all back together. I showed you in the video it worked. Then I realized after it was all said and done, there is a little, like a spring washer that I forgot to put back in there. It rides on the brush end of that motor. So I had to take it all back apart, put that down in the hole, and then put it all back together. And the problem that I was running into, I actually set up my tripod, was trying to record it. I probably tried 3 or 4 times to get this sucker back together, and I just couldn't do it. I was fighting it. The issue that I was running into is the ends, the very ends of the brushes were getting chewed up, because where the brushes right on the end of that motor is bigger around than the bearing. So it's easy to get the brushes on the bearing, but I couldn't get them to pop back over where it rides on the motor. Now, I did get lucky twice. Couldn't get lucky a third time, so I was chewing that up. So what I did, and this will probably help you guys a lot too. So I went to Toolbox and got me a file that's, I don't know, 1/4 inch wide, and I filed the edges of the brushes at an angle so that they would just kind of slide right over where they ride onto that motor. And I'm gonna tell you right now, when I did that, that thing went back together like butter. So, and then I buttoned it all back up, cleaned it all up, and I tested again, and it does work. So ARB, if you guys are seeing this, feel free to hit me up, and you can send me a new thing of brushes and the end of that thing, all that, if you guys are impressed. Other than that, see you in the woods.